There's never a dull moment when it comes to Minnesota sports. Whether it's positive or negative.
The Yankees have swept the Twins.
Minnesota Sports Chat has you covered. Talking nothing but Minnesota sports all year long. It's time now for the soon-to-be award-winning, if only in his own mind, Minnesota Sports Chat with your host, Ross Brendel.
Well, that would be me, and welcome inside edition number 249 of the soon-to-be award-winning Minnesota Sports Chat. Almost a quarter of the way to 1,000 from this venture started somewhere early to middle of the great pandemic of 2019-2020. Minnesota Sports Chat is presented by my friends at Beans Coffee Company. This podcast is award-winning, if only in my own mind. And today, in just mere moments, we will fulfill the monthly Manny quota with his appearance again in mere moments. Out of the gate, I can tell you, feeling great today. I had a good night's sleep. I've had the appropriate amount of caffeine thanks to my friends at Beans Coffee Company. Man, is it good stuff. Really, truly amazing. Make sure you head on over to coffeebybeans.com. Use the promo code SportsChat at checkout, and you'll save a little bit of cash on the best small batch and locally roasted coffee here in the great state of Minnesota, but they do ship all over. So if you're watching, listening around the country, perhaps even around the world, coffeebybeans.com for truly some great coffee. Do me a favor, at least check out the website. I'm sure you'll see something you want to try. And when you do give it a try, coffeebybeans.com, promo code SportsChat. Use that promo code, save some cash. We now welcome in a man who is a former co-host of the Raised by Wolves podcast, a current do-it-all man for Jazz 88 and MPS Voices in the Twin Cities. He and I are currently, I think he knows this, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary as friends, going all the way back to 2005. His name is Mr. Manny Hill, and he joins the show now. How you doing, my man?
Good, my friend. Always a pleasure to be on with you. And yeah, it is pretty crazy how fast 20 years can go by. You blink and all of a sudden you're in your, well, you're not quite in your 40s yet, but I'm
knocking on the door.
2 of my 40s. So yeah, it's crazy how time flies. It's amazing.
We're really battling it out to start this podcast. I just have a coughing attack. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that. I at least turned the mic off. I'm dangerously close to sneezing. I also dropped all of the tea bag in the tea, so I had to fish out the little whatever you would call it. So we're off to a great start.
You
and
just give me a signal if you feel like a profuse coughing spell coming.
You just carry it,
your finger or something, and I'll carry it for 20 seconds.
Well, you know me, and anybody who listens, consumes anything on Score North, my side hustle or whatever, I'm already nasally to begin with. And then about half the year I fight allergies, so it just adds to it. And I'm kind of going through one of those bouts right now. But you know what? We will power through, just like the Minnesota Timberwolves have done to the second round of the NBA playoffs.
The Minnesota Timberwolves have beaten the Lakers 4-1, and now they await the winner of the Houston and Golden State series.
Oh, how sweet it was for our pups, that highlight, if you will, courtesy of TNT, the melodious tones of Kevin Harlan. The Wolves now await the winner of the Nuggets and Clippers, with game one early next week on either Monday or Tuesday. So whether the Timberwolves go on the road or not, they get the luxury of perhaps getting a little bit of rest, which you would like to think, if the next series goes long, would benefit the Minnesota Timberwolves. But Manny, for the first time, I repeat, the first time in Minnesota Timberwolves history, which is now 36 seasons, they are into the second round of the playoffs in back-to-back years. Congratulations to our Minnesota Timberwolves. Look at us now. And Manny, we'll get into it, but I've kind of felt this way much of the year. Admittedly, I'm going to be honest about this with both of the clubs we're going to talk about, squads, whatever you want to. I didn't watch as much this regular season as I have in years past. I kind of ducked in and out, kept tabs. Maybe I would watch 5-10 minutes here and there. But I watched a fair amount of other teams, as odd as that sounds. And Manny, just like last year, and it proved to be wrong, but for a year and a half, you heard me tell everybody last year was going to be the year the Minnesota Timberwolves went to the NBA Finals, and they were oh so close. I still have a hard time grappling in my head how they didn't finish the deal and get to the NBA Finals, but that's neither here nor there. I will tell you, Manny, I would be surprised if this Minnesota Timberwolves team is not playing in the Western Conference Finals. I would be a little bit less surprised if they're not playing in the NBA Finals this year. I'm not convinced they can win it, but I am bullish on this Minnesota Timberwolves team. And even though they had really bad losses throughout the year, this is a team that historically plays up to their competition and plays down to their competition. Here's the best part about the playoffs, Manny. There's not many teams to play down against, so you're generally going to play up to the competition. And I'm feeling pretty good about these Minnesota Timberwolves. Not surprised at all that they beat the Lakers. The Wolves are just a better team than the LA Lakers. It is simple to say that. The Lakers might have the best players. They did not have the best team in this series, and I will say the same thing when the Minnesota Timberwolves take on either the Houston Rockets or Golden State Warriors. Would I be shocked if the Wolves lost? Absolutely not. Those are good teams. But I genuinely believe that the Minnesota Timberwolves are better. The games will bear that out. But I'm tickled pink. Anytime you get a chance to beat a brand like the Lakers and end their season, especially with what we deal with in this state and the teams that we cheer for, Manny, how the hell can you not be happy?
Well, and I do have to correct you very quickly because you said the Wolves are awaiting the winner of the Clippers-Nuggets series. They're actually awaiting
sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry. I don't know why I keep saying that. I know who it is. Sorry. And I think I said that like three. I think I said that like 3 times too. So you need to correct me 3 times. But yes, I know it is Warriors and Rockets.
And no worries.
Then you have Nuggets and Nuggets and Clippers. Thank you.
Yep, the Nuggets and Clippers.
And OKC has already moved on.
Yep. So it's the amazing thing about what they've done is, this is now, if you think about with Chris Finch, he's now won more playoff series than any coach in Timberwolves history. I mean, Flip, God bless him, rest in peace. Flip only won 2 playoff series as Timberwolves head coach in that same Western Conference Final season of 2004, and Chris Finch now has already won his 3rd playoff series in these last 2 seasons. So there's something to be said for that, and I think the way that this team has kind of embraced this very tough bully ball physical style of play, I think has been huge, and it's the primary reason why they were able to beat the Lakers. And in addition to having a lot more depth and just a size advantage over the Los Angeles Lakers, who really didn't have much of an inside presence at all in the form of a big man, they just really kind of out-toughed and out-physicaled the Lakers for the entire series. And even in the game that they lost, that was just due to a really, really poor shooting night, I think, for the Wolves losing game 2 in LA. So it was really impressive. I saw after watching game 1, I felt like, oh yeah, this is advantage Wolves here, not just because they won the first game, but they just look like the better, bigger, more physical, deeper team. And they showed it, and hats off to them. And even in a game in which they didn't shoot the ball particularly well, Rudy Gobert stepped up in a big way and really took advantage of his size in game 5 to put the Lakers away. So it was really impressive. And, depending on, the matchup of the second round, whether it's the Warriors or the Rockets, it could, present maybe some different challenges for the Wolves. But I would, if I were a betting man, I would bet on the Wolves, chances to go on to the Western Conference Finals if it's either Golden State or Houston. I feel like Golden State would be a tougher matchup because of the experience that they have. But I think with them having the home court advantage against Golden State, I think will really help them. They would obviously be on the road if it was Houston, but I don't think Houston doesn't seem like a team that's really ready to go on a deep playoff run yet. There's some maturity stuff there, I think. Even within some of the veterans that they have, they don't really have much of an offensive attack. It's a lot of it is just Jalen Green kind of dribbling the ball and throwing up shots. Fred VanVleet doing the same thing. Not really a lot of flow to what they're doing offensively. They're kind of a now. I think with the Rockets, they are kind of a physical team, and they're kind of a nasty, physical, beat you up type of team with Dylan Brooks on the defensive end too. So that would match up well with the Wolves, but I don't think they have enough offensive firepower to really be able to match up with the Wolves. Golden State's a little bit more of an interesting challenge because they do play defense with Jimmy and Draymond, and we know what Steph Curry can do at 37 years old. Even now, he's just an amazing, almost unstoppable player, even at this age. So the Warriors will present more of a challenge, but I think with the depth that the Wolves have, I think they would have a huge advantage over either team.
I'm going to follow up on your Warriors point and let you have a rebuttal and then circle back, management term, circle back to the first round playoff series. Think of the juicy storylines with Wolves and Golden State. Passed up on Steph Curry, not once, but twice. Draymond Green and Rudy Gobert going at it. Jimmy Butler, old friend General Sortis back in town. And that's just to name a few. That could be a ton of fun. I agree with you. Definitely, probably. I love to say that. It can't be definitely, probably. Definitely, in my mind, the tougher matchup. But a matchup I still think the Timberwolves can and probably would win. Now, I agree with you. At the end of the day, if the Warriors won, I would be less surprised by that than if Houston won, even though I wouldn't really be surprised if Houston won either. When I say the Wolves are better, we're talking, decimal points or slightly better. Once you get to this, once you get to this next round of the playoffs, when you get down to the final four on each side, Manny, generally, these teams are all pretty close. There's not that much of a difference. I think the East could be a ton of fun with Cleveland and Boston, even the Pacers quietly just becoming this really good, unassuming basketball team that I think potentially, depending on who they see and how the path breaks, wouldn't be all that outlandish if the Pacers continue to go on a run. Now, the conspiracy theorist in me, Manny, says, would the NBA really allow the Cavaliers to take on the Timberwolves or Oklahoma City in the finals? Or Indiana versus Minnesota? Would they really allow that? But then I also come back and say, if you didn't want that to happen, maybe you shouldn't have put teams in those markets. But
right.
I just think the juicy talkers of, and it shouldn't be about that. You want to see good basketball, but just the talkers of Wolves and Golden State. I don't think nationally it would do a ton, but in Minnesota it would be a ton of fun.
Well, and I think nationally it could still be, just because of the Golden State factor in it, you know what I mean? And we know what the national media likes to do sometimes. They like to kind of create storylines and create narratives. Obviously you mentioned the Draymond Rudy matchup, that sort of beef that has gone on the last couple of years now. That would be a focus, the Jimmy Butler history thing. And let's not forget Steph Curry is, you mentioned that name in Timberwolves history. People still, to this day, 16 years later, still cringe when they hear Steph Curry. Every time he hits a three-pointer, it's like, should have been doing that in the Wolves uniform, all of that stuff, obviously the history there. So, I think it would be a huge storyline. And Ant and Steph were teammates on the Olympic team last summer as well. So there's that sort of dynamic to it as well. So I think there would be a lot of attention to it. And it would just be fascinating to watch. To your point about potential matchups in the finals that the league might want or prefer, it's kind of, if you're to go with that theory, I think if you're the NBA, you're just kind of hoping that it's the Knicks or the Celtics representing the East. And then at that point, you're probably just, if you want the full-on matchup that sort of the national media might want at this point, it's probably Golden State taking on the Knicks or the Celtics in the finals because of the markets and the popularity amongst those franchises. But, you got Oklahoma City left, and they've been the best team in the league all year, but it's Oklahoma City, not a lot of household names, even though their best player is probably going to end up winning the MVP and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But that's still kind of that small market team that a lot of people don't really pay a lot of attention to. And then you mentioned Cleveland, who's been almost, if not every bit, as good as Oklahoma City has been from start to finish this year too. So I will say it's nice to see some of these smaller market teams. And the Cavs have a history of going to the finals a lot, obviously, with LeBron and his time there. But this version of the Cavs feels like they feel like kind of that true small market team because it's Donovan Mitchell who's a star. A lot of their other really good players are not really household names. Evan Mobley's a really, really good player, won Defensive Player of the Year. Not really a household name now. Now maybe he becomes one, but the Cavs overall as a team, not really super well known. And it's going to be fascinating to watch how everything kind of plays out.
Well, on becoming one as a star, being more well known, I mean, you don't have to go back 20 years. Nobody really cared about San Antonio Spurs basketball till Tim Duncan got there to go with David Robinson. And even Golden State. Golden State was flyover territory out west and the brand that they've built. So there's nothing that says, even though they're in smaller markets, that Minnesota can't become a desirable place for not just players, but for fans and media to pay attention to. Same with Oklahoma City. You start winning titles, you win more than one, people are going to pay a heck of a lot more attention, and you're going to start getting national support from fans. So there's no reason that can't happen to the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, or even a new form of the Cleveland Cavaliers or Indiana Pacers. One thing we can do to give Adam Silver some credit, this is kind of his creation. We poke fun at it, but what he's doing with your aprons and different ways you can pay or not pay and how you get taxed and what you don't get taxed on is designed in theory for every team in the NBA to have a shot to win the championship. And we've seen it in recent memories. Now, maybe it's coming to an end with Giannis. Maybe he gets traded this offseason, but Milwaukee was able to do it. The Raptors were able to do it. Dallas is a pretty big market, but hadn't historically been an NBA franchise that routinely competed for NBA championships. They did it, and I know I'm leaving off a few, so it's been fun to see. And for me, you know me, Manny, I poked fun at the NBA for years and said it was a Ponzi scheme. You got 30 markets, but only 6 teams that can win a championship. That does not nearly exist to the level that it used to anymore.
Well, and I'll even go bring up the Warriors winning in 2022 as an example, because that was the post Kevin Durant Warriors. And that was kind of the big question of like, can the Warriors win a title without Durant? Because they won those 2 in a row and went to the finals every year. And they were kind of that super team. But once Durant left, they kind of really weren't a super team anymore. They had kind of gone back to what they were at the start of this run, where it was Steph, Clay, Draymond, and those guys were older and maybe not quite as good as they were in their prime, 7, 8 years prior. And the way that they were able to do it with, somebody like an Andrew Wiggins, who had been kind of viewed as a bust and not really, had kind of turned himself into a glorified role player, stepping up and contributing as well. So that was, we've really gone away, I think, from like you hinted at, that the super team era has kind of become a thing of the past now, to where you're trying to form a super team now. It's just like what the Phoenix Suns have tried to do. It's not likely going to work, because it's harder to keep a team like that together. It's harder to build a roster, that's good enough to compete and have enough depth. We saw with the Suns, part of their problem is they don't have enough depth. You know what I mean? With that trio of superstars that they have. So I think we're in a new era where team building is a big thing. You get 1 or 2 star players, and then you kind of supplement those star players with really good role players, and you've got a chance to go on a run. And I think it's really kind of even things out.
So you're starting to walk me back to where I want to finish the NBA conversation, back with the Minnesota Timberwolves, the LA Lakers, and why I legitimately do feel like this Minnesota Timberwolves team can win the West. I still have my questions if they can beat Boston or Cleveland.
Sure.
I would love to see if they have the chance. Heck, even if it was New York or the Pacers, I would love to see them have that chance. But why do I think this team can go on a run? You can say, Ross, everything that you're saying, you said last year and the team came up short. Gentleman's sweep against Luka and Dallas. All true. But here's why I think it's different this year. The Minnesota Timberwolves, it's only one game. They had every reason to not really take the game seriously, to mail it in and say, we'll get them back. Game 6 in Minneapolis. What does it really matter to close it out in Game 5? They fought and clawed all game 5 in a night they didn't even play very well to win the basketball game, take it seriously, and move on. I think what we saw last year, Manny, when they took on Dallas, me included, maybe even them, anointed themselves as NBA Western Conference champions, but you still have to go out and play the games and earn it. And now, granted, Dallas played really well aside from Luka. It wasn't just Luka. Their support staff did really well.
Kyrie was great that series, too.
Kyrie was fantastic. I don't think Luka or Kyrie missed a shot in any game. I'm going to cough here very quickly. Apologies on that. But it feels like this team is now, even though they don't have Karl Anthony Towns, maybe they're not as good of a team talent-wise as they were last year. But between the ears and understanding, I think they're better. Now, I can't explain the regular season losses to some of the teams they simply should not lose to, where they should have had the number 2 and number 3 seed. But maybe we saw in the first round of the playoffs that as long as they bring this every night in the playoffs, they're going to lose games. They're not going to win every game. Some of these series are probably going to go 6-7 games. I like where they're at. And a part of what happened to them last year, generally, Manny, not always, but generally, there's a process to becoming a champion. I find it highly unlikely OKC is going to win a championship. I do believe that. I guess I'd be shocked if it's this year. They need to go through it one time. You got to get close. You got to go through the process. Now, maybe for them, getting close is making it to the finals and losing. Mm-hmm. I just really think the experience of last year, what the team went through this year, what they were able to do in round 1, I feel like they're in a really good spot. Again, could be wrong. They could lose in the next round in 5 games. But where it sits today, I feel really good about where the Minnesota Timberwolves are at, and I think we're in for a long spring, early summer with our favorite basketball team, which, by the way, we're owed. You know, getting to the second round for just the first time ever in back-to-back years, we're owed this. You're not really owed much in life, but we are owed this. Let's enjoy it.
Well, and think about what these last 4 seasons, let's go all the way back to 2022 when they made the playoffs and lost to the Memphis Grizzlies in 6 games in the first round as a 7 seed. Think about these last 4 seasons now and all of the postseason basketball that the younger guys that's in this core, talking about Ant, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid. Think about all of the playoff experience now that these guys are gaining as they're going into their mid-20s. And I mean, Naz is already kind of in his mid-20s, but Jaden and Ant are starting to enter their mid-20s now over these next couple of seasons. And just think about all the postseason tough winner go home, game 7 experiences that these guys are gaining now. And that's huge. And I think you give Tim Connelly, I think, a lot of credit for going and making the Rudy Gobert trade. And I know it had its critics. There's no doubt about it. I still kind of in the camp that maybe they gave up too much for him. But you can't deny the impact that somebody like Rudy Gobert has been able to have on this team by, adding that strong defensive element to this roster that allowed them to go on a deep run last year. And it's probably allowing them to go on a deep run this year, perhaps. That's big. And to have your young superstar be able to get all of this experience early on instead of building these habits of losing, 50, 60 games. I mean, Wolves made the playoffs in 2022 with that different core of D'Lo and Jared Vanderbilt and Patrick Beverly and Cat and all that whole group. Who's to say it would have been as good or a better season the next year, without making that Rudy Gobert trade? They might have not made the playoffs for all we know. And that wouldn't have necessarily been good for the development of Ant and Jaden McDaniels and things like that. So I think just getting all of these playoff experiences, getting into the habit of playing winning basketball is going to be huge for the young superstar that is going to be the cornerstone of your franchise, at least for the next decade. At least that's what you hope.
My final thought or talker on the Timberwolves is just a simple question to you. You've heard my thoughts. I think you've kind of answered it, or you've weighed in with your own opinions, but how far do you think this team can go? Am I overselling how good they are, or was it just a really good matchup with LA? Or do you also look at the Minnesota Timberwolves and say, yes, that team can come out of the West? I will clarify. Oklahoma City should be the favorites. They are the favorites.
They're really good.
Probably will win. Probably will win the West. I guess what I'm saying is, I just don't think you can sell to me a strong argument that the Wolves can't win the West. And if they get the opportunity, that they can't beat Oklahoma. They wouldn't do it quickly, but you can't sell to me that there's no way the Wolves could beat Oklahoma City in 6 or 7 games.
Well, and let's be honest. I'm not 100% sure that Oklahoma City is even going to get to the Western Conference Finals. The Clippers and Nuggets are good. I mean, now the Nuggets have had their issues. They inexplicably fired their head coach with 3 games left in the regular season, who was a really, really good coach and won a championship with them 2 years ago. But Denver still has the best overall player on the planet, and that has to count for something. And the Clippers have a healthy Kawhi Leonard and James Harden.
For now.
Very, very true. Very, very true. And we have yet to see James Harden really come through in a big moment in the postseason. That's always been the narrative too with him. But like, the Clippers and Nuggets are good teams too. And the Clippers especially played really, really good basketball down the stretch of the regular season. And they've kind of carried it into this series as well. And it's kind of fitting that series is going to go 7 games now. And I think either one of those teams could beat Oklahoma City. Now, again, if I'm a betting man, I would bet on Oklahoma City coming out of the West because they've been, from start to finish this season, the best team, the best overall team in the league. And they're deep too, and they've got the presumptive MVP this year in SGA. But I don't think that they are unbeatable. You know what I mean? So, who knows what happens to them in the second round, depending on what happens with the Nuggets and Clippers. And if it is the Wolves, if the Wolves are able to get past a Golden State or a Houston, get to the conference finals, who knows what could happen there too. So this is wide open. You've got your favorites. You've got your teams that you would, pick to come out of the West. But I think this is as open a Western Conference as we've seen in a really, really long time.
Final quick talker for you on the way out the door. Congratulations are in order. We'll get the clapping out of the way. For the 8th time in a row, your Minnesota Wild have lost in either a qualifying round, if you count the COVID season, or the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. This audio courtesy of our friends at something called Scripps Sports in Vegas.
Zuccarello on the wall. Out high, Faber, a wrist shot blocked. 5 seconds. Faber, another chance. That's blocked on the far wall by Howard. The puck to the near boards, and that's it. And the Golden Knights win the series in 6.
A heck of a fun series, Manny. No doubt about that. It did feel a little bit differently. I think the Wild brought it every night, other than, I wouldn't say they didn't bring it in the game. They lost 5-2. No, they won 5-2. I don't know what I'm talking about. Fun back and forth, but in the end, same old, same old. They've now passed the late 90s and early 2000s Minnesota Timberwolves for early Minnesota playoff futility. Maybe they've tied if you don't count that qualifying round in the COVID year. Maybe you don't, but still, just frustrating. More of the same old, same old. You can tell me all you want. They finally have a bunch of cap space, which they do, but they immediately have to turn around and spend a lot of that cap space on their own players. So it just seems like they're in a really rock and a hard place. But if you can get going forward the Kaprizov you got when he came back, and I don't even think he was all that healthy, you can somehow maybe find another scorer. Easier said than done. I don't think they're that far away from one day being able to go back to like a conference finals. But remember, for a while, I think you and I have talked about this, and I don't necessarily love saying it this way because I never want to poo-poo fans for being fans. But right now, following the Wild until they can win a playoff series just kind of feels rather pointless. You're like, what are we doing here? It's been a decade, and it shouldn't be that difficult. It just like the NBA, half the GD League makes the playoffs. Could you win a playoff series at some point? And this is now multiple times, 5 times, Manny. 5 times they've led a series 2-1. They've lost every time in game 4. At some point, don't you win just for showing up? We would say that all the time when the Twins lost 19 playoff games in a row. don't you just one-time win because you're there? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't even really know what the question or what I'm even asking here, but it was fun. I'm not necessarily mad at them. I didn't think they were going to win the series. I thought they were going to lose in 5. But we talk about this all the time. Expectations can change. When you get up 2-1 and you're at home, would it kill you to one time get up 3-1? I mean, would it?
Well,
maybe it would.
And how about the 35-year-old that the GM gave up a second round pick for? How about he just like not go offside? And then
mind you, a few years earlier, he traded, I think it was a 5th, but it might have been a 4th round pick for the same player.
Yeah.
So what changed in a handful of years that he's now worth a second round pick?
In both stints, he's done nothing for them. Let's just Billy Karen, let's just not trade. Let's not make trade for Gustav Nyquist anymore. Let's just not do that anymore.
Enough, Manny, with the big plotting defensemen and big winners, or big wingers. Why don't you just at some point just try and sign good players? Maybe they don't always have to fit your prototype of what hockey looked like in the 90s and early 2000s. And again, this is by far, except for Gopher hockey, by far the sport I am least qualified to weigh in with major opinions. I do not follow the Wild nearly like I used to.
Yeah.
But a part of it, this sounds bad, Manny. A part of it is on them. If you would do something, I would pay more attention.
Well, and part of it too is I think, who knows if Kaprizov were healthy for the entire season, maybe they would have ended up with a better record and a higher seed and
amen
matchup in the first round and all that.
Same with Ak. I get it. I get all that.
Yep. And those are, arguably your two best players right there. I mean, Kaprizov is clearly their best player. And, maybe you could, with kind of the emergence of Matt Boldy, maybe you can argue between Eriksson Ek and Matt Boldy of who the second best player is. I think Matt Boldy's going to be a freaking superstar. He's awesome. We know Kaprizov is already a superstar. So I think that if there's a silver lining or positive side of this is that you do have a foundation of young guys in their 20s. Kaprizov and Ek are kind of getting into their later 20s, but you've got guys that are in their 20s that can be really strong foundational pieces, provided you're able to sort of keep all of them around with your cap situation. So that's what they have going for them, and it's just a matter of now, can you find some more supplementary pieces to go to kind of surround those guys with, and then as Kaprizov kind of gets into his late 20s, 27, 28, 29 years old, where you're probably going to see the best of him. Can you take advantage of Kaprizov being certainly one of the top 5 goal scorers and just overall players in the league? Can you take advantage of that and put together a team strong enough to go on a deep run? And I think staying healthy obviously is going to be a big part of that too.
The biggest thing the Minnesota Wild can do this offseason, change that stupid goal scoring song. That was an okay song in the 50s. It is not a goal scoring song. Get over it. Find something.
Yeah.
I thought we need to let Prince rest in peace. But even that was better. That goal song is atrociously bad. It's terrible.
Well, and the Vikings have kind of taken the Prince song now to let the Let's Go Crazy as the touchdown song too. So I don't know if Wild can use that as a goal song now.
Let the man rest. If we weren't going to adore him in life, let's not adore him so much in death. That is my hot take of the day. Really mean thing to say. But where were all these Prince fans before he passed away, Manny? I don't think they existed quite like they do now. I'm just throwing that out there. It's very Jerry Seinfeld-like. Manny, very quickly, remind people, where can they find you?
You can follow me on the X machine at Manny Hill 84, even though I'm not nearly as active as I used to be.
Smart man.
Yeah, tell me about it. And I'm on mpsvoices.com, jazz88.fm, all of that good stuff, putting together some really good projects with the students of Minneapolis Public Schools.
I am at the Ross Brendel on the X Machine, and this has been another award-winning edition of Minnesota Sports Chat. Back in this feed real soon.
Thanks for listening to Minnesota Sports Chat, presented by Beans Coffee Company. Use the promo code SPORTSCHAT. That's one word, Sports Chat, to save at checkout. Follow Ross on X at the Ross Brendel. Like and subscribe to Minnesota Sports Chat wherever you get your podcasts. Rate and review kindly.